Quoy and Gaimard report that in the Atlantic Ocean, near the equator, they discovered the remains of an enormous calamari, half-eaten by sharks and birds. When whole, it could not have weighed less than 200 pounds. A portion of this specimen was secured and is preserved in the Museum of Natural History in Paris. Captain Sander Rang recorded encountering, in mid-ocean, a species distinct from others, a dark red calamari with short arms and a body the size of a hogshead. In a manuscript by Paulsen, referred to by Professor Steenstrup at a meeting of Scandinavian naturalists in Copenhagen, 1847, there is a description of a large calamari cast ashore on the coast of Zealand. Professor Steenstrup named it Architeuthis monicus. Its body measured 21 feet, and its tentacles 18 feet, making a total length of 39 feet. In 1854, another specimen was stranded at the Skag in Jutland. Professor Steenstrup believed it belonged to the same genus as the preceding one but was a different species, naming it Architeuthis dux. The body was cut into pieces by fishermen for bait and provided many wheelbarrow loads. Mr. Gwyn Jeffreys states that Dr. Mork informed him the beak of this animal was 9 inches long. He adds that another huge cephalopod was stranded in 1860 or 1861 between Hillswick and Scalloway on the west coast of Shetland. According to a communication received by Professor Ullman, its tentacles were 16 feet long, the pedal arms about half that length, and the mantle sac 7 feet. The largest suckers examined by Professor Ullman were 3/4 of an inch in diameter. We also have the testimony of the officers and crew of the French dispatch steamer Alecton, commanded by Lieutenant Billet, describing an encounter with a great calamari on November 30th, 1861, between Madeira and Tenerife. Around noon that day, they observed it floating on the surface of the water and stopped the vessel in an attempt to capture it. Many bullets were fired, but they passed through its soft flesh without causing much harm, until, at last, the waves were observed to be covered with foam and blood. It had likely discharged its ink bag, as a strong musk-like odor became perceptible, an aroma often associated with the ink of cephalopods and reportedly a trait of the Kraken. Harpoons were thrust into the creature but failed to hold due to the yielding nature of its flesh. It broke free, dove under the vessel, and reappeared on the other side. Though the crew wanted to launch a boat for a closer attack, the commander forbade it, unwilling to risk the men's lives. A rope with a running knot was slipped over the creature and secured around the base of its broad caudal fin. However, during the attempt to hoist it on deck, the immense weight caused the rope to cut through its flesh, and all but the hind portion of the body fell back into the sea and disappeared. M. Berthelot, the French consul at Tenerife, saw the fin and rear portion of the animal aboard the Alecton 10 days later and sent a report to the Paris Academy of Sciences. The body of this squid, which, like Rank's specimen, was deep red, was estimated to have measured 16 to 18 feet in length, not including its formidable arms. These are statements made by men whose intelligence, character, and position merit respect and credibility, individuals whose testimony would be accepted in any court of law. Furthermore, the consistency of details across their accounts lends substantial weight to their collective evidence. Fortunately, we are not dependent solely on documentary evidence, nor must we rely on belief or disbelief based on personal bias. Specimens of extraordinarily large cuttles are preserved in several European museums. In the collection of the Faculty of Sciences at Montpellier is one 6 feet long, caught by fishermen at Set, which Professor Steenstrup identified as Ammostrephes terapus. A specimen of the same species, formerly owned by M. Eschricht, who received it from Marseilles, is held at the Copenhagen Museum. Another, similar specimen is on display at the Museum of Trieste. It was caught off the coast of Dalmatia. At the 1841 meeting of the British Association in Plymouth, Colonel Smith exhibited drawings of the beak and other parts of a very large calamari preserved in Haarlem. In 1860, M.P. Harding described in the Memoirs of the Royal Scientific Academy of Amsterdam portions of 2 other specimens from collections in Holland. One of these he identified as Architeuthis dux, which he believed to be synonymous with Dorbignies Ammostrephes tedaris. Despite this, some doubt persisted among naturalists and the public about the existence of gigantic cuttles, until the close of 1873, when two specimens were encountered off the coast of Newfoundland. One of them, along with a portion of the other, was brought ashore and preserved for study by competent zoologists. The first was described in vivid detail by Reverend M. Harvey, a Presbyterian minister in St. John's, Newfoundland, in a letter to Principal Dawson of McGill College. On October 26, 1873, two fishermen in a small punt near the eastern end of Belle Isle, Conception Bay, about 9 miles from St. John's, spotted something floating in the water. Assuming it was wreckage, they rowed closer. When one of them struck it with his gaff, it showed signs of life and extended its tentacular arms as if to attack. The other man, Theophilus Pico, managed to sever both arms with an axe as they lay across the gunwale of the boat. The creature then retreated, discharging a quantity of inky fluid that darkened the surrounding water. Upon returning home, the fishermen exaggerated the size of their encounter, as fishermen often do, claiming the body measured 60 feet in length and 10 feet across the caudal fin. They said it reared a parrot-like beak as large as a 6-gallon keg. Despite the embellishments, Reverend Harvey was able to obtain a portion of one tentacular arm chopped off by the axe. This piece, preserved in the St. John's Museum, measures 17 feet long and 3.5 feet in circumference, according to measurements by Mr. Alexander Murray, provincial geologist of Newfoundland and Professor Verrill of Yale College. Based on these dimensions, including the girth and the diameter of the suckers, Professor Verrill estimated the creature's full size as follows: body length 10 feet, body diameter 2 feet 5 inches, tentacular arms 32 feet, head 2 feet, making a total length of approximately 44 feet. Contrary to the 6-gallon keg description, the upper beak was about 3 inches long and the lower 1.5 inches. Based on the relative size of the suckers, Professor Verrill believed this individual was likely female. In November 1873, about 3 weeks later, another calamari, somewhat smaller but of the same species, was also brought to Reverend Harvey. This specimen had been caught by 3 fishermen hauling a herring net in Logie Bay, 3 miles from St. John's. The animal was entangled in the net and was so large and vigorous that the men had to sever its head to bring it ashore. The body of this second specimen measured over 7 feet long, with a caudal fin 22 inches wide. The 2 long tentacular arms were 24 feet in length, and the 8 shorter arms measured 6 feet each, with the thickest of these being 10 inches in circumference at the base. The total length of the calamari was 32 feet. Professor Verrill classified both this and the earlier Conception Bay specimen as belonging to the same species, Architeuthis dux, described by Steenstrup. Excellent woodcut illustrations, based on photographs of these 2 specimens, were published in the field on December 13, 1873, and January 31, 1874. I am grateful to the publishers for their kind permission to reproduce these images in this work, in a reduced format. Mr. Harvey also provided further evidence of other giant cuttles seen along the Newfoundland coast. He mentions 2 particularly notable specimens, cast ashore in the winter of 1870 to 71 near Le Moline on the island's southern coast, reportedly measuring 40 and 47 feet in length. He also refers to another, stranded 2 years later, with a total length of 80 feet. In the American Journal of Science and Arts, March 1875, Professor Verrill offers authenticated details of several more giant calamaris, ranging from 30 to 52 feet in total length, discovered in the Newfoundland region since 1870. One such specimen was found floating, apparently dead, near the Grand Banks in October 1871 by Captain Campbell of the schooner B.D. Hoskins, out of Gloucester, Massachusetts. It was taken aboard, and part of it was used for bait. The body reportedly measured 15 feet in length, with pedal arms between 9 and 10 feet. The beak was sent to the Smithsonian Institution.